To chit or not to chit, that is the question. Whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the sprouting of potatoes for glorious harvests, or to allow them to sprout themselves against a sea of troubles. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So there's my little rendition of Shakespeare, or adaptation of Shakespeare. But that is the question. You'll see so many people talking about chitting potatoes, and what I want to discuss today is whether it's necessary to chit potatoes or not. So you've seen the different ways we grow our potatoes in our garden. We grow our early potatoes in buckets, and we grow our main cropping wood chips in the main garden beds. And we have some really good harvests. Unlike a lot of commercial growers, I'm someone who never deliberately chits my potatoes. But this year I've been a little bit organised, and I've got my potatoes in advance. So here's some Sapo Mira that I've got. And what is chitting? Chitting is the process of getting potatoes to put on short sprouts. You'll see these potatoes put on these short stubby sprouts. The reason that we as gardeners do it is so we can get these potatoes off to an early start, and we can get those harvests a little bit quicker, and we can try and beat the season a little bit. Commercial potato farmers won't chit their potatoes. They don't chit their potatoes, they don't have time for it. They'll store them in a warehouse at lower than 5 degrees Celsius to stop them from sprouting, and then they'll take those seed potatoes and they'll go straight into the ground once they've dug the furrows, and they'll go straight into the ground, they'll grow up, and they'll give them a wonderful harvest without having to chit them first. And that's generally the approach that I've taken with my main crop potatoes. Now, we got our main crop potatoes a few days ago, and they've already got short stubby sprouts on them. You can see them, they must have been in the dark a little bit indoors. That's why these sprouts are a little bit white. So the way I'm going to store these seed potatoes, I'm going to just leave them in a container like this. Yeah, these are Desiree variety, and these have always done really well for me. I'm going to leave them in that container. I don't mind them being stacked up like that. I'll leave them in the greenhouse, and I'll come and give them a little. I'll make sure that I'll make sure that they're not rotting or anything like that. You might see some people put them on egg trays. That's another absolutely fine method of doing it. On potatoes, you often have eyes concentrated at one end rather than the other end. You'll often find throughout the potato there's eyes all over. So if you did want to actually double up on your potato or seed potatoes, cutting that in half, making sure that there's an eye on each piece, then you could actually double up your potential seed potatoes. Something that sort of size, a nice big size, I'd definitely do that I'd definitely cut this in half, and we'd have, potatoes growing from each side. Now, with main crop, I absolutely agree with the commercial farmers. I don't think there's a need to do it. Unless you've got them early and you're chitting them as a byproduct of you storing them. Yeah, that's what I'm basically doing now. I've also got a bag of earlies. Now, again with these earlies, they've got the same thing. They've got these little sprouts on them. These are Maris Peer. These are a second early. And I'm going to just open these up into this container, and I'm going to leave them to sit in here. If they are tangled like that, just be careful, untie them a little bit carefully so you don't actually rip that sprout off. I mean, if you did, it's not the end of the world. They will sprout again, but you'll just delay them, that's all. So yeah, inevitably I've taken half the sprout off. I'm telling you to be careful that I'm taking half the sprout off with it. But not to worry. So I'm going to leave it there in this container, and they're going to grow up. With earlies and second earlies, it's a good idea to actually chit these, because we're trying to grow these in a rapid amount of time. Any advantage that we can get on that season. So if you can get these into a warmish greenhouse, or even in your home, somewhere where they can, light, airy windowsill, somewhere they can get some light, and they can, that warmth will stimulate the growth. Anything like that will give you a little bit of an advantage. With main crop, I mean, like I say, I don't normally chit them. I've grown them, I've chitted them before, I've not chitted them before, and I've seen the same results. Even with, in timing, it's not that much of a difference. Whereas with earlies and second earlies, you can notice the space of a couple of weeks. So if you do have chits on them, and you do have some actually quite nice chits, and you do have some quite nice sprouts, then you can do what I've done. A couple of weeks ago I actually planted some potatoes into here, and you can see the potato sprouts coming up there, and that's quite nice. And as they fill up, see there's more potato sprouts there, and as they fill up, I'm just gonna earth that up and fill the bucket up all the way to the top. So that's one of the other little tricks that I do, is as well as chitting potatoes, I will get them planted early. So the earliest I'll go is towards the end of January, early February, that sort of time. Mid-February is absolutely fine to get them planted and keep them in the greenhouse. Once the plants have filled out in this bucket and you've earthed it up, you're sort of that high, you're towards the end of March when your greenhouse is needing to be filled and planted with other things. These buckets can then go outside, and then you're pretty much safe from any severe frost coming. And that's what we're doing with these potatoes. So I'm gonna actually plant a couple of these potatoes. And if you haven't seen the method that I use to plant potatoes, see, I'm gonna look for the ones with the biggest sprouts on them, just simply because yeah, there was one with the biggest sprout on it, but I've dropped that somewhere. I've got some seed potatoes with nice sprouts on them, and let's get these planted actually. And the way I plant my potatoes in buckets, the first thing that goes in is a scoop of wood chips. There's even a bit of plastic. You can't escape plastic everywhere. So I'll just carry these compost buckets up. At least it keeps you fit. Lugging these buckets of compost about. It's a good bit of exercise. So with earlies, again, get some compost in at the bottom. And I'll get my seed potatoes in and covered up. Put another one in there. So that last seed potato that I put in was quite big. And because it's quite big, I've only put one at the top where I'd normally put two in. I'd normally put 4 early potatoes in. But my Pure are a decent size early as well. So, I mean, they are a second early, but they're a decent size one. So they go into quite nice potatoes, so they will need a bit more space. If I was growing the really small salad potatoes, then I'd definitely go for at least 4 in that bucket. While I'm here, I'm just going to go and top that other bucket up. While I've got a little bit of fresh compost that I've harvested, this can go over the top of these sprouts that are coming up. And if it does get cold, at least they're protected. There we go. Beautiful. So to summarise, do you need to chip potatoes? Main crop, for me, it's a no. For first and second earlies, yeah, if you've got the time. I hope you do enjoy these videos. Make sure you leave me a comment and hit the like and subscribe for regular updates. I also make videos on Patreon, so if you would like to support us, that's a great option for you. I'll leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.